In the home my fiancé, Ethan, and I were setting up for our marriage, there was a photo of him and his ex-girlfriend, Vivian. When I confronted Ethan about it, he told me to stop making a scene. I walked out without hesitation, and Ethan fell apart. I clutched the cold keys tightly, standing at the door of Ethan's new apartment. This was the day my fiancé and I were finally moving in together, the fresh start I had been longing for. I pushed the door open. The bright living room was immaculate and upscale, the faint scent of coffee lingering in the air. Everything seemed perfect. But just as I was carefully unpacking, filled with hope, a photo on the nightstand stung my eyes. In it, Ethan was smiling, a warm, uninhibited smile I had never seen before, intimately holding a stranger. My heart sank, as if dropping into an icy abyss. "Who is this?" My voice trembled, barely a whisper. Ethan poked his head out of the kitchen, coffee in hand, a gentle smile on his face that I couldn't read. "Oh, her? Just an old friend. Nothing special." His casual tone felt like a knife twisting in my chest. My breath hitched, my blood boiling. I stared at the smile in the photo. She was a stranger, yet she seemed to hold a clearer, more important place in his heart than I did. "You put this photo on the nightstand? For me to see? Why didn't you put it away?" My voice had suppressed anger and a deep sense of powerlessness. Ethan paused, finally turning around. Hands in his dress pants pockets, he looked down at me, his eyes full of impatience. "Put it away? Why?" he asked back, his voice dripping with cold disdain, as if my question were ridiculous. My heart tightened, my knuckles turning white as I clenched my fists. I pointed at the bed, my voice rising involuntarily. "That is our wedding bed. What exactly do you take me for?" Ethan's lips curled into a cold sneer. He walked over, picked up the frame, and his long fingers gently caressed the woman in the photo, as if touching the world's most precious treasure. The tenderness in that moment was something I, his fiancé, had never received. Then, casually but cruelly, he spat out, "It's a memento. She's important to me." Boom. My mind went blank. It felt like thunder exploded in my ears, freezing me in place. The extreme contrast between his tenderness for her and his coldness toward me shredded my dignity. In his heart, I didn't even measure up to a photograph. I choked, my throat feeling stuffed with cotton, unable to make a sound. Humiliation and heartache washed over me like a tide, drowning me completely. Just then, a servant knocked on the door. "Sir, breakfast is ready." Ethan looked unfazed. He placed the frame back on the nightstand with care and solemnity, as if returning a sacred relic to its place. He adjusted his collar and walked away. He didn't even look at me again, leaving only cold words behind. "Let's go. Don't block the way." The door closed, leaving only my pale, bloodless face and that photo, shining brighter than anyone, mocking me in silence. In the dim morning light, I left that familiar mansion, covered in cold humiliation. Ethan's words, "She's important," cut into my heart like a dull knife. Night fell, and the city lights came on. Tonight's charity gala was a feast for high society, and a battlefield I had to attend. I carefully chose a white gown, elegant and restrained, like a proud lily. I had to tell everyone that I was Ethan's fiancée, the true mistress of that mansion. Crystal chandeliers cast blinding light, the air smelled of expensive perfume and alcohol. I walked into the hall, struggling to maintain a polite smile and elegant poise. Even though my heart was riddled with holes, I wouldn't let anyone see my vulnerability. But the subtle gazes still felt like knives on my face, whispers in the crowd, eyes filled with ridicule and scrutiny. Just then, the banquet hall doors were pushed open. Everyone looked over in unison. A moment later, low gasps rose and fell. It was Ethan. He wore a tailored black suit, his face cold, every movement exuding nobility. Countless eyes burned for him, but what really sent the room into a frenzy wasn't him, it was the woman on his arm. A fiery red dress outlined her figure seductively. I recognized that face instantly, the woman in the photo. Now, she wasn't just a frozen smile on paper, she was vibrant and dazzling right before my eyes. The hall seemed to go silent, then erupted in whispers. "Who is that? Why is she with Ethan? Isn't Lily the fiancé? No wonder. I said it before, they definitely never cut ties." The whispers weren't loud, but they pierced my eardrums like needles. I went stiff, my fingernails digging into my palms, my blood seemingly frozen. And Vivian, that woman, seemed oblivious to the fact that she was tearing apart another woman's dignity. Instead, she smiled sweetly, walking with confidence. She held Ethan's arm intimately, as natural as a couple married for years. Her red dress contrasted with Ethan's coldness, one like fire, one like ice, yet they were a perfect match. They walked right up to me. Vivian leaned in slightly, a meaningful smile on her lips. Her voice was low, meant only for the two of us, yet it crushed my pride. "Hello, I'm Vivian. You might have seen me in the photo." Then she looked up, her smile turning bright as if showing off her victory to everyone. She paused, then announced clearly and loudly to the guests, "Hello everyone, I'm Vivian. I am the person Ethan cares about most." The words "person he cares about most" felt like a slap across my face. The room fell dead silent, then exploded into even wilder whispering. What? What does cares about most mean? Then what is Lily? So it was a joke all along. The looks were no longer just curious, they were naked pity, schadenfreude, and mockery. The cruelest part was Ethan, standing beside her, didn't deny it. He didn't clarify. He didn't even look at me. He just coldly let Vivian hold his arm, tacitly accepting those words, pushing me into an endless abyss. My cheeks burned, my chest felt tight, and I could barely breathe. Decency, status, self-esteem all shredded in an instant. The woman with the bright smile and the cold man stood side by side, looking like a true match made in heaven in everyone's eyes. I stood there, blood draining from me, limbs cold and stiff. Gazes from all directions pinned me down like arrows, inspecting me like prey. The whispers grew harsher. How does she still have the face to stand there? So it really was a joke. She was kept in the dark. If it were me, I'd have crawled into a hole. Every word tore at my face, shredding my dignity. I was like a clown stripped of all decency, struggling in front of everyone, humiliated with nowhere to hide. "Lily, why are you just standing there?" Vivian's voice rang out again. Her smile was sweet, but her words were sharp as knives, dripping with a victor's contempt. "Since you're here, why not come over and chat? Let everyone see what you really amount to." That was the last straw, shattering my remaining sanity. My breath was hot and ragged, burning up the last shred of my pride. "Lily, don't go over there." My best friend's anxious voice called out, trying to stop me. But I didn't stop. I walked forward, stiff but determined. I wasn't looking for a fight, I just needed an answer. Even a lie would be enough to keep me going. "Ethan!" My voice wasn't loud, but it cracked through the hall like thunder. The noise stopped instantly, and all eyes turned to the three of us. Ethan finally looked at me. But his eyes held no warmth. Cold, distant, even slightly annoyed, like looking at a clueless stranger. "What exactly are you trying to do?" His low voice was as cold as a winter blade, carrying undeniable authority. My eyes reddened quickly. I stared at him, my voice trembling. "Ethan, tell me, what are we? What am I to you?" I just wanted an answer that could let me hold on, even if it was a comforting lie. Hearing this, Vivian smirked triumphantly. She deliberately pressed closer to him, almost snuggling into his chest, and laughed softly. "Honey, she doesn't seem to know her place yet." Low laughter rippled through the crowd, full of cruel amusement. Ethan frowned slightly, as if my questioning bored him. The next second, he lifted his arm and naturally pulled Vivian into his embrace. His expression was indifferent, his tone cold and final. "Stop making a scene, Lily. She is the one in my heart." Boom! That sentence hit the hall like a lightning bolt, shattering my world. The crowd went into an uproar. Some shook their heads, others snickered. I swayed violently, as if pushed into the abyss. My chest tightened painfully, making it hard to breathe. Tears burst forth, blurring my vision. All I could see was that man's ruthless face and that woman's blindingly painful smile. My throat seized up, I couldn't speak. I felt drained of my soul, teetering on the edge. "Lily, let's go." My best friend rushed up and grabbed me, shooting a glare at Ethan. But Ethan acted like he didn't see it, showing no emotion at all. He patted Vivian's back gently and whispered, "Ignore her. Let's go." Cold, cruel, total denial. In that moment, my heart died completely. I finally understood that to Ethan, I wasn't just insignificant, I was less than a photo, less than the one in his heart. My mind was blank. The humiliation and anger burned like magma inside me. I couldn't hear the guests or see the worry in my friend's eyes. I only knew I had to leave this suffocating hell immediately. I turned abruptly and ran toward the hall doors. Every step felt like walking on knife points. Just as I was about to cross the threshold, a sickly sweet voice came from behind, hissing like a venomous snake. "Lily, leaving so soon? The game has just begun." It was Vivian. She had actually followed me. I didn't turn back, but the hairs on my neck stood up. "What, are you angry?" Vivian chuckled, walking up to me. In a voice only we could hear, she whispered in my ear, seeing me standing next to him, "Does it make you feel unwilling to accept defeat?" I clenched my fists, nails digging into my flesh. I fought the urge to turn around and slap her. Seeing my silence, Vivian laughed even happier. She leaned in again, smelling of strong perfume, and spat out a sentence with disdain and triumph, like a vicious curse, "You will always be just a replacement." The words pierced my heart like a poison needle. I shuddered, my pupils constricting. Anger, shame, sorrow, everything peaked. I couldn't take it anymore. I shoved Vivian away and ran out the door without looking back. I stumbled toward the parking lot, tears streaming down my face. I thought I had lost everything, but at least I could escape. But the moment I opened the car door, a cold voice came from behind, drenching me like a bucket of ice water and extinguishing my last spark of hope. "Stop." It was Ethan. My heart constricted. I turned around, looking at him through a blur of tears. I had imagined this 1,000 times, him running after me, offering an explanation, a word of comfort. But the reality was crueler than any nightmare. He stood there in his perfectly tailored suit, his face cold, without a hint of mercy. In his eyes, there was only naked anger and disappointment. "What the hell are you trying to do, Lily?" His voice was low but heavy with pressure. "Do you have any idea how much you embarrassed yourself tonight?" I embarrassed myself? My tears flowed harder. I let out a jagged laugh, my voice raspy and desperate. "In front of everyone, you denied who I am. You were all over another woman. You turned me into a laughingstock. And you're saying I embarrassed myself?" Ethan's expression darkened. He took a step forward, his tone turning even colder. "I told you not to make a scene in public. Do you not understand English? You humiliated me and dragged my reputation through the mud." "Your reputation?" I was shaking all over. Looking at his stony face, I finally realized that he hadn't come after me because he cared, or because he felt guilty. He came because I had embarrassed him. There wasn't a shred of love in him, not even a shred of respect. To him, my existence was nothing more than a disposable accessory. And now that the accessory was being disobedient, he felt nothing but irritation and disgust. I lost all my strength. I felt hollowed out. I looked at Ethan, and the scarred place in my heart finally froze over in a dead silence. I don't know how I made it back to the house. I was in a daze the whole way, like a walking corpse, my vision blurred by tears, shivering in the cold wind. It wasn't until I pushed open the bedroom door that I snapped back to reality. There, on the nightstand, that eyesore of a photo was still sitting perfectly in place, as if mocking my wretched state. Boom. My long-suppressed rage finally exploded. I lunged forward, grabbed the frame, and hurled it at the floor. Crash! Glass shattered everywhere, the shards reflecting the messy light. The photo was torn apart, the smiles on Ethan and Vivian's faces were sliced to pieces, just like their hypocritical love. The funny thing was, even though the photo was broken, my heart didn't feel free. It just felt achingly empty. I slowly slid down the wall onto the floor, the floodgates opening again. Only when my tears ran dry did I stand up, trembling. The sorrow in my eyes was replaced by a calm, icy resolve. I opened the closet and began folding my daily clothes into a suitcase. I didn't even glance at the expensive gowns or the jewelry. They didn't belong to me, and I had no interest in taking them. When I zipped the suitcase shut, I felt like my heart was being locked away too. There was no turning back. I grabbed my luggage and walked toward the door. Just then, I heard heavy, steady footsteps outside. Thump. 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 They sounded like hammer blows against my chest. The door swung open, and Ethan appeared. He saw the shards on the floor and the suitcase in my hand instantly. His brow furrowed, a flash of impatience and mockery in his eyes. "Are you done with your little tantrum?" he asked, his voice hard, as if scolding a bratty child. I didn't answer. I just walked straight past him with my luggage. Ethan's face fell. He caught up in a few strides and blocked my path with his long arm. He looked down at me, his eyes full of cold amusement. "You aren't walking out that door, Lily." His tone was like a court sentence, dripping with cruel contempt. "Don't forget, everything you have is because of me. Without me, you are nothing." Those words were sharper than any blade. My hand trembled on the handle of my suitcase, but I didn't back down. I looked up, staring straight into those cold eyes. Once, I had fallen for them 1,000 times. Now, they felt like the eyes of a stranger. I suddenly smiled. It was a smile full of irony and finality, a final goodbye to myself. "Yeah, you're right. I'm nothing." My voice was calm, but every word cut like a knife. "The funny thing is, I actually used to think that by being with you, I could become something." Ethan's brow twitched. He hadn't expected me to be this composed. I slowly set my luggage down and uttered the words that would nail his ego to the floor, "But there is one thing you're wrong about." My voice was clear and steady, each word echoing like a heavy hammer in the silent hallway. "I don't want to spend another single second in this house." With that, I didn't look at him again. I stepped around him and walked down the stairs without looking back. The click of my heels on the marble sounded like a war drum, beating through the air. I could feel his gaze burning into my back. He wanted to call out, but I heard nothing, only a dead, heavy silence. I kept my back straight and vanished into the night. At that moment, I knew that the version of Lily remaining in his mind would no longer be the humble, desperate one, but the silhouette of a woman who was starting to make him feel true panic. For 3 days after I left, I kept my phone off. I could imagine Ethan's arrogance. He was probably certain that a forced fiancé like me would have nowhere to go and that this was just a little trick to get his attention. But I was no longer the Lily who waited for him to look back. The thing that truly shattered his ego wasn't my departure, it was my father's final trump card. The lawyer later told me what happened the day the will was read. When the butler tremblingly announced that there was an issue with the will, Ethan probably felt a loss of control for the first time in his life. Supposedly, when he opened the sealed document and saw that one line, it was like being struck by lightning. "To ensure the stability of the company's core assets, the core shares under my name shall be inherited in full by my designated heir, Lily." Impossible! Ethan's scream supposedly pierced through the soundproof doors. He bolted upright, shouting uncontrollably, "That's impossible. I am his only son." The lawyer simply told him, "Mr. Ethan, the chairman stated clearly that only Miss Lily is qualified to inherit. This will is legally binding." Ethan must have been in a total panic. He even mentioned Vivian, trying to grab onto a final straw. But the lawyer ruthlessly crushed his fantasy. "Regarding Miss Vivian, she is not mentioned once in the will." In that moment, I wasn't just a replacement in his eyes, I was the person holding his fate by the throat. He had always thought I was a pawn my father used to keep him in line, never realizing that my father had seen right through his flightiness and Vivian's hypocrisy. He had left his final trust to me. When the company's upper management learned the truth, the entire elite circle was rocked. The relatives and executives who used to mock and belittle me were likely scrambling to reevaluate my past endurance. They finally realized it wasn't weakness, it was the calm before the storm. As for Ethan, they say he called my phone like a madman, only to hear the cold automated voicemail. He stormed out of his office to search the world for me, only to find that I had vanished into thin air. He finally realized that he hadn't just lost his fortune, he had lost a woman who once truly loved him and who was now far out of his league. I pieced together Vivian's ending from society gossip. When she realized her schemes had come to nothing, her sophisticated mask finally shattered. Word as she screamed hysterically in Ethan's office, "What do you mean? I get nothing? The core shares all went to Lily?" Ethan tried to calm her down with talk of stability, but she only met him with her most vicious mockery. "Stability? You had me play along with you for this long, and I get nothing? Ethan, do you think I'm an idiot?" She thought she was the ultimate winner, but reality slapped her across the face. She left with a parting shot, "I'll get back 10 times, 100 times what I'm owed," and slammed the door. Karma came faster than I expected. Over the next few days, I watched the red tickers on the financial news. Ethan's core company data had been leaked, the stock price was tanking, and his biggest client had been poached. And the person behind it all was a competitor Vivian had defected to. I saw Ethan's haggard face on TV and could imagine his fury when he called Vivian, "Are you insane?" And Vivian's response was likely the straw that broke the camel's back, "I loved your money and your status." But now, just like your boring father, you're just a fool. The woman he hurt me for, his true love, delivered the fatal blow when he was at his lowest. I turned off the TV, feeling no joy, only the indifference of a settled matter. He finally understood, didn't he? He had pushed away his only true ally, the only one who didn't care about his money. Meanwhile, the one he cherished as a treasure was a viper all along. From the moment I left Ethan's mansion, I sealed away that dark past forever. With the help of my best friend Chloe, I started my own women's fashion brand. The company wasn't huge, but it was my life's work. I was no longer an appendage behind Ethan, I was the CEO in the boardroom. That was when I met Alex. He was an Ivy League elite, refined and gentle, and more importantly, he respected my talent. Our brand took over the market quickly. On the day of our launch, I stood under the spotlights, facing the cameras with a confident, bright smile. It was a version of myself that had never existed when I was with Ethan. I want to thank my partner, Lily, Alex said on stage in front of everyone, his eyes full of admiration. Her talent is the most dazzling thing I've ever seen. He placed a hand lightly on my shoulder, and in that moment, I felt completely grounded. The flashes went off like crazy, and I knew what tomorrow's headlines would be. I also knew Ethan would see them. In that luxury office he was about to lose, what would his face look like when he saw the headline, "Mysterious Rising Brand CFO Makes Stunning Debut, Spotted with Partner Alex, New Romance Rumors"? In the photo, I wore a sharp suit, smiling with effortless confidence, while Alex looked at me with a gentle gaze. He used to think that without him, I was nothing. But the reality was, without him, I was more radiant than ever. Ethan found me 3 days later. I was sitting in front of a floor-to-ceiling window, discussing next season's designs with Alex. The door was suddenly shoved open, and a figure stumbled in. I almost didn't recognize him. He was wearing a rumpled shirt, had unshaven stubble, and the dark circles under his eyes were bruised and heavy. He looked like a vagrant, with not a trace of the wealthy golden boy left. "Lily! I found you!" His voice was hoarse, carrying a kind of desperate euphoria. Alex stopped working and looked at him in surprise. When I met his bloodshot eyes, my heart didn't even skip a beat. I just looked at him blankly, as if looking at a stranger. "Ethan," I said calmly. "What are you doing here?" His eyes were red as he rushed forward, his voice full of pleading. "Lily, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong now. Vivian, she betrayed me. She never loved me. I realized that the only person who truly loved me was you." This late arrival devotion was so ironic it was almost funny. I looked at him without sympathy or anger, just coldness. "Is that so? Don't you have her? Didn't you say she was more important than me?" The words hit him like a whip. His body jerked like a cornered animal. "Lily, give me one more chance. Come back to me. I can't survive without you." He reached out to grab me, and I instinctively stepped aside, a natural and decisive move, as if avoiding something filthy. Alex immediately stepped in front of me, his gaze icy. "Mr. Ethan, please show some respect." Ethan watched Alex protect me. He saw Alex's hand on my shoulder, and the jealousy in his eyes nearly boiled over. But he had no right to argue, because he saw the utter distance in my eyes. In that moment, he finally realized he was completely out of the game. That total breakdown drove Ethan to do something I never thought possible. Under the shocked gazes of Alex and my secretary, this once arrogant man slowly dropped to both knees, cowering at my feet. "Lily," he sobbed like an abandoned child. "I'm begging you. Please come back to me. I've lost everything. The company, my dignity, now, I can't lose you too. I can't." Watching him kneel there, I felt no sense of victory, only pity. Once, I had craved a single apology, a single look back, even a shred of mercy. But now, when he truly trampled his own dignity to beg me, my heart had long since died. "Ethan," my voice was as flat as a stagnant pool, without a single ripple. "You haven't lost everything. You've only lost the me that you thought would never leave you." After saying that, I didn't give him another look. I turned and nodded gently to Alex. "Let's go. We have a flight to catch." I walked out of the office without looking back, the sound of my heels echoing in the hallway. Every step was a goodbye to my past self. Ethan seemed frozen in place. He didn't chase after me for a long time. It wasn't until I was in the taxi that I saw his silhouette stumbling out of the building in the rearview mirror. But the car had already sped away, leaving him with nothing but a fading memory. Later, in the airport lounge, sunlight poured through the massive glass windows, feeling warm and inviting. Alex and I walked toward security, talking about our future plans. I couldn't help but laugh, a genuine, light-hearted laugh. I knew Ethan might be watching from somewhere nearby. Maybe he had followed me to the airport, maybe he was looking at me desperately through the crowd. But I didn't look back. I took my luggage and walked through security. Ahead of me was a vast, wide-open future, while the man who once broke my heart was finally left behind in the past, where he could never touch me again.